Before we begin, if this resonates, please like, subscribe and share. It helps us grow the conversation and meet this epochal moment together, where something new is arising in humanity. Thank you very much. Almost everyone is back, and if you are back, please let us know that you are here by showing yourself on screen. And let me get us right away into this next leg of the journey, as we explored in the first part what do we mean by creational logic, and played a little bit in the sandbox of the threefold principle and how it expresses itself in so many different facets of life. And now we want to approach possibly one of the most ever-present, most prevalent threefold influences of our life. And let me bring the slide, and we'll get us into this exploration. All right. So the threefold creational system. And what we are proposing is that the human is already a threefold system, that we are each carrying those three influences, those three capacities, those three natures. And what we are asserting here is not an astrological, or at least not the traditional astrological perspective. We'll ask David in a minute to perhaps make the distinction by what we mean in how we say this, not in the astrological influence, but rather the threefold system in the way it manifests actually in the human system. To get us started, here is a way into this. Well, consider that the moon has a dark side and a light side. So the moon holds polarities. The moon itself is a domain, is a function that represents the polarity of light and dark. And one way to therefore consider the appearance of moon nature, moon function, moon denomination, if I can use this word in the human case, is that when we are magnetized, when we are captured by polarity, we are magnetized to the nature of the moon function in us. That's a thought about seeing the presence of the function of a moon. And I should say, by the way, there are moons in the larger cosmos beyond our private Earth moon, and there are planets beyond this special planet of ours, Earth, and there are suns beyond this sun. And so we call this sun, planet, moon to describe what those three functions represent, both in the local system and also beyond it. What's curious about placing polarity with the moon is that it tells us something about modern culture. We are now experiencing a phase in the history of the world, in the evolution of the story of the epoch, where we seem to be very potentized in polarities. Could it be a way to appreciate that as we are entering a new phase of evolution, which is what the epoch story that we are tracking reveals, that we cannot right away walk into that new elevation, that new octave, that new epoch. We cannot walk right into it, even at the planetary, let alone the sun level. We actually need to come through, process through the moon level of that new octave. Consider that as an inquiry rather than an answer. So then when we look at the 4 seasons of the planet, we're seeing something very different from polarity. The moon has light side and dark side and is a representation of a polarity. Could it be that when we see ourselves grounded in the process of change, as we cycle through the gradients between the seasons, that in itself is a representation of bringing our awareness, bringing our orientation, attunement to something that is more planet-like in nature? So now we wonder, what might be the case for the sun? Well, the sun, if polarity goes with the moon and a cycle of 4 goes with the planet, well, the sun is a representation of multiplicity, in that she brings her influence and orchestrates this planetary experience through the 12 zodiacal constellations. So I would offer that as the first entry into appreciating those 3 levels of process and function. And in a minute, we will bring the iHeart crew back on screen to experiment with a way of bringing us from the words of this into the body to experience this. But before we do that, David, what's a way to ease into this? What would you offer us as guidance to see sun, planet, moon, even in our constitution, even in the human design itself?
It's such a well, we're going into the integrated movement work. I'd actually bring something from world history, because this is not a new idea. This is something which, particularly before the Age of Reason, I've looked at many diagrams from the time of, let's say, the alchemists and around the 15th, 16th century, where they do exactly the diagram you've got there. And they show the moon to be to the level of the hips. And that was a lot to do with releasing waste product also, together with, curiously, the procreation aspect. So that's an interesting dynamic. The planet was to do with the organs, which is where we get organized. So, we got our internal organs and literally being organized. And then the sun from the neck and above. And we'll see this as an example in artwork from, if we look at Shiva from the East, they show this person in this aura, which is solar. And that's saying the solar influence has actually filled up the entire aura. So there's designations in the human design. We've got the moon, the hips and below, like the hippies. We've got planet going from hips up toward neck, or as you show their chest, the organs. Then we have to do with a higher potency, which is to do with our brain. What they also then showed, which is where we get to those 12 zodiacal constellations, coming through the sun, they would then show above the head stars. You get this idea of the wizard's hat. They show stars above the head. So we have this moon, planet, sun design system. But what I want to highlight is, although that's in our design, because we're human, we can specialize in in any one of these three, or any combination of two of these three. It doesn't mean that in our entire system, we're not focusing even our brain and our organs into moon level activity. Or we can be focusing our brain, although it's solar, we can be focusing it into planetary activity. Or we can be focusing it in a way that does bring in solar power, as represented in the aura of Shiva and in the aura of, when you look at the aura that, say, Our Lady of Guadalupe or Jesus the Christ, where you have this amazing solar glow around the entire energy field. So we're capable of tuning ourselves in to all three of these frequencies. And it depends how we live, how we tune into the different energies. I hope I'm not getting in advance of where we need to go, but that idea of we have the capability, almost like our entire system is a radio set, and we can tune ourselves into primarily lunar frequency. That's that binary idea, like you said, and become some kind of a bit of a lunatic. We can tune ourselves into planetary frequency. We don't have this word, but we become a bit of a planetic, and we can tune ourselves into solar frequency and become saltic. So we can tune ourselves into these different frequencies and bring in a greater or lesser amount of their energy. And I think that's a crucial part, is the alignment, and then the energy that we bring into ourselves through that alignment.
And,
I'm sure we'll get more into this as we go forward.
and would I be correct in that, in what you said there, you are not suggesting that the moon is bad and the sun is good, but rather that these are three different levels?
Yes.
And that something becomes offset or off balance when it operates and expresses itself in a level below its natural orientation by design.
Yes.
So if our heads are totally preoccupied with moon level, that is not the best, most promotive, beneficial way to use our head.
Exactly. So as you do, we'll be seeing everything as either good or bad, black or white, in a binary way, which is more lunar, rather than actually looking at it as an integrated part of a whole. So part of creation logic is in understanding the system, how do we align ourselves in the system? Knowing it is one level and then aligning it. That's such a crucial part of this journey.
And this is the right moment, thank you, David, to bring the iHow crew back into the spotlighted area. And I'm going to unshare and ask if you are ready to help us bring this from words and concepts and ideas into a felt experience, first by demonstrating something, and then perhaps by inviting us all those who want to participate with you. So please, Rita, take it away. Yeah.
Okay, good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Lovely.
And we also need to unmute Rob, so you can, please.
Right, we're going to have a little experiential play with these three zones or layers. And I got quite inspired by this image and these three areas from hips down and the mid-body and from neck and above. Now, just to say, this is not prescriptive. This is not, that's it, and there's nothing else. It's just one way of entering an exploration into how these different levels might be outplaying and living in our body. So you're very welcome to stand up and find a little bit of space around you that you can move in. Or if you prefer to stay seated, you can even go on a mental journey with this, just do it your way. And if you're caught by the exploration, you've got the whole life to explore it further. So these are just very small, brief starters. So when you found a space where you feel at ease, standing or seated, just take a couple of breaths and just gather yourself onto yourself. And then in a moment, Rob is going to give us maybe a minute or so of music to tune us into the frequency of the moon. And while that goes on, just think of your body and feel what goes on in your body from the hips down. Now, one entryway would be, I was thinking of the polarity. We've got left foot, right foot. There's a very clear polarity that helps us go places. So if you want to walk around, experiencing that area, please do. Or simply find your way into it, which is what we are also going to be doing on screen. So when you're ready, Rob, they're ready for your music. The speed and the frequency. It might come to you as movement, or there may simply be a posture that goes with it. And before we move on, just take a moment to sense, how are you feeling? Where in your body and in your energy field, your aura, do you feel based? How does that cause you to feel? What part does that play in your life? And then find your awareness in the middle of the body, between the hips and the neck. There's so much that goes on, all the organs, they live there nestled together, and they're all interactive, inter-influencing, inter-assisting. They all need one another, and the wholeness of ourselves need all of them to be as well as they can be. So while Rob finds their sound, their music, also think of their cyclic nature, like we played with breathing earlier. Also, nourishment goes through different cycles. So in a sense, there's a spring, a summer, autumn, and winter, or initiation, flowering and fruiting, shedding, and dormancy, that go in the cycles of everything that goes on within the body. So just find your own way of exploring this as the Rob plays.
So we have spring. have summer. And there's fall. And there's winter.
Thank you. And again, just take a moment in between to sense into how did that feel? How has that left you feeling? And what is the place of the planetary rhythms and seasons in your life? And then to explore and play with the area above the neck, the sun area. And however much I value my right big toe, I'm not sure that it's ever had a new idea. But quite frequently I have new ideas coming in, goodness knows where from. And they kind of come in here and sometimes they come out through the mouth, or they might shine out of the eyes. So just think of everything that is newly appearing, everything that radiates out, and spend some time with music to explore the sun level frequencies, the generative, new, radiating qualities in your life. And just before we move on, just take a moment to register, feel, what was that like? Where can you feel it? In the body, around the body, What kind of a state did that cause? And then with all these three important parts, none better or more important than the other, all working at their level, the moon, the planet, the sun, in creation, including us. We're going to go into the next part of the adventure. So over to Aviv and David.
If this conversation inspires you, help us grow by liking, subscribing, and sharing with a friend. Your voice matters in this epochal moment, and would love for you to be part of the journey. Thank you very much, Rita, Beth, Eleni, and Rob, for an exquisite experiment really. And part of what we are demonstrating in this idea we started with today, which invited the premise of work on a project that you know you will never complete in this lifetime, and engage and embrace an inquiry that you know you can never fully resolve, a mystery you can never fully resolve, because that's simply is the way you will never catch yourself up, you'll never get stopped. And what we are demonstrating, that we mean that in a throughout whole human person way. So we don't just ask those questions and try to answer them with words and with concepts, but rather we are seeking the feeling, the appreciation, the experience, the embodiment, the ensoulment. And this is just so much even more important now in the context of what we said at the beginning of part one, where we talked about the part of our salvation and answer to the challenge of the AI, the wonderful thing that the AI revolution brings to us, but also the challenge that it looks to brings the threat of subjugating us humans to the machines. And if we are to retain our unique nature as a sapient species, now becoming universal species, that's the premise of going from Homo sapiens to Homo solaris, on the way to Homo universalis, a true universal human. That we integrate these dimensions of life through feeling, appreciation, and perception. And so now I get to bring, I know I only have
we have
20 minutes
to go.
I
will
will
on the half hour, so we're kind of winding down now to let everybody know.
You do know, Lisa, that our winding down is a kind of a winding up.
Exactly.
So this is where we were. And now I will quite swiftly bring a few more coded terms to each of these, to invite that we contemplate the multifaceted discovery of sun, planet, and moon, how they show up in our life, how they show up in the human function and human process. Well, moon is the realm where things get fixed in a polarity. Planet Earth is where we are not fixed, we can go through change. We just saw that we experience change through the 4 seasons. The sun is where there is more than change, there is a process of transformation inside out. Part of the nature of the sun is this nucleonic activity that transforms everything inside out. And we know in the planetary experience that whatever is whatever you put into the fire that can be taken into the fire, piece of paper, a piece of wood, it will be transformed in a profound way. And then that we can also see that when there is a process that we decide that we are ready to discharge, to release, or to freeze out of the repetitional process of our life, we are in a way ready to give it back to the moon, to release it, to discharge it, so it is frozen out of the seasons of our life, because we no longer need it, because we have assimilated that lesson and are ready to move on. The planet is the realm where we say, no, this is something important. I choose to maintain it. I choose to uphold it. I choose to take it through the cycles of the day, the week, the months, and the year, such that it can continue to grow in my life. Planetary realm is where we put seeds so they can indeed flower and bring their fruits to whatever it is we choose to do. Well, the sun level, the sun nature process, is where we transform, where we alchemize, we change something in its very constitution, and where we get to energize, truly energize. So, suppose you said, well, can you give a concrete example, a concrete for instance? Will offer us access by sensory and experience kind of access. Well, yes. We would say that the moon is associated, the rock is associated with the moon, something that has been frozen from the liquefied, the liquid, cyclical nature of life. And so therefore, it shows how critical it is to have the function of the moon, because the moon represents, in that sense, the hard rock, the hard floor for us to stand on. The planet is, well, the planet is where trees can grow and go through the process of the seasons and change the color and change their leaves and experience this gradient move through the seasons. What might be a way to feel? What might be a way to experience? What might be a way to access intuitively sun level process, sun level nature in us? Well, as Rita demonstrated earlier, it's when we get ideas. I think Rita said, I don't get ideas in my toes. Sometimes the toes will send a signal that I need to be careful where I walk. But the light of ideas come through above the neck, the higher faculties, and also how these irradiate back into the body. So inspiration and the idea that would catalyze us into action, in that sense, is a representation of a sun function inside the human model. This is what we are tracking. We are tracking how the natural design affords us moon function, planet function, sun function, all as part of the human model. And we are suggesting that to learn about the human, we want to learn about the sun, the planet, and the moon. And oh, by the way, to learn about the moon, the planet, and the sun, we can look at ourselves and discover more. So, The moon has almost no atmospheres at all. It has certain magnetic fields that is actually powerful and impacts the water on the planet, but it doesn't really have an atmosphere of its own. The planet contains her own atmosphere. The sun emanates light that envelops and irradiates throughout the solar system and is shaping this entire galactic zone that we are part of. So in that sense, we can say that the moon represents for us the past. The planet is our present. The sun represents the future. And so therefore, form, the hard form, can be found with the significance of the moon, where recurrence of the dark side and the light side is forever present. The planet is where we are unlocking the melting, the ripening of all processes. In the moon, processes are frozen and fixed. Still erosion and recurrence and condensation, but it is in the planetary denomination planetary nature that we experience the full range of processes and therefore growth and evolution. The sun is where life is being given, light is being given, life is being given, and where conscious creation can be accessed. So if you were to try to use this as a framework for contemplation, for self-discovery, for self-insight, here is one way to access it. For example, we could ask, what within me is fixed like a rock? Yeah, you could say, what within me is fixed like a rock? And you could say, what am I ready to release and discharge? There are more, but these are two entry ways into the appreciation of the important function of a moon inside the human cosmology. With the planet process, you will ask, well, what within you is growing like a tree? What are the seeds you planted in your garden that are now growing, potentially flowering, potentially ripening into fruit? And what are you working to uphold and maintain? If you were to then seek to contemplate in this self-discovery way into the sun, you'll say, what ideas, what possibilities inspire you? What gets you up in the morning and energizes you to do sometime what perhaps a day earlier or a week earlier you never thought was possible? What in you uplifts? What in you energizes? What in you brings light? So David, I just offer that as a codification. We have 5 minutes, but I invite you to, what is it you'd want to build into this? We're merely a map for discovery of these three octaves in our life.
To come from a tangential place, it's connected, tangential. I'd call it the scale of time, leaving aside the mystery of what time really is for another time. But the idea that in the timing of things, there's a biological connection between our lunar timing, our planetary timing, and our solar timing. So the lunar timing is 28 days. And it's fascinating because every 28 days, our skin cells flake off. Not all at once. They do it individually, otherwise we'd be in difficulty. We'd be like, shedding our skin on the 28th day. And what happens there is that a process that only lasts for 28 days, you could say, is only skin deep. And where it gets confusing is you can have someone who's in the sort of flush of first love, and they're going to be saying, "I love you forever and forever," but on day 25 it stops. Well, that's when it didn't get beyond the level of the moon. It didn't get beyond the lunar level. When we get to the organization of the planet, we're looking more at the idea of a 7-year process. Traditionally, I mean, there's different organs, they put different timings to these days. But the idea was that the planetary cells have a longer life than lunar cells. So lunar cells are short-lived, which is to do then with things like a lunar craze. Something comes like a craze, like a tide. The lunar is very tidal. It's got this 28-day timing, and then something comes through, it's a craze, and then it's gone. The planet, well, you've got a 7-year process. So something is much longer lasting. And that's where we get in relationships the so-called 7-year itch, which interestingly, it's still number 28, but it's 28 seasons rather than 28 days. So then the test is, as an example, a relationship, will it outlast the 28 seasons, or is it a planetary level relationship? And then if we move through that, we get to the idea that, Aviv, you mentioned earlier, to have a project that will take you right through this life and out the other side. Because the cells in our brain, that is the brain in our head, our eyeballs, they're part of the brain, going down the brain in the spine, because our spine is part of our brain system. I mean, our brain system looks rather like a tadpole. It's got the line going up it and then the brain, and they've got the eyes coming out the front. That at cellular level lasts a lifetime. It's not subject to the change of the planet or the change of the moon. The moon is a shorter scale of time. The planet is a longer scale of time, but still, if we only have projects that last the planetary time frame, we're going to catch ourselves up. When we get to solar level, then we have cells that last a lifetime. So we then have, as an example, not only an idea which can inspire us, come into our spire and inspire us, but what is it that becomes a kind of, in the French it was called an idée fixe, the fixed idea that is right at the core of our nuclear being that carries us through this life and out the other side. And do we even have such a core nuclear process? I looked at the word nuclear a few minutes ago. Nuclear, if you anagram it, it says unclear. And if you drop down the levels, you say, I'm unclear, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing yet. I'm not sure what my life's about. That's more the moon planet of things. But once someone goes nuclear, well, they become clear about what their life is about, what their life is for. They don't only have a mission, they have a permission. And they're bringing in new solar energy, like you said there, the Solaris. They're actually bringing in new solar energy on the journey to the universe, on the journey to becoming connected even higher than sun level. Like in the ancient diagrams, they'd put the stars and the galaxy above the head. So as a human being, we're fundamentally, even biologically, there's biologic, right? We've got moon cells, planet cells, sun cells, and it's how we're constructed. So that's why it's creation logic. We're looking at the actual design going, wow, our skin cells, they do actually have a 28-day process. And other certain features have that 28-day process. And that's clicking into the moon. And then we have the 28 season process. And then we're starting to move into Solaris, solar process. And we're right back where we started when you said you asked your teacher about how not to catch yourself up, and he said, "Well, take on a project that goes right through this life and out the other side." That to me would speak of solar level,
Yeah.
not planetary and not lunar, but solar level and beyond and above.
Thank you, David. So I'm going to try and bring us home with distilling from what David just offered there, that one way to therefore appreciate the task for us, because one of the key messages in the invite was we already are a proof of the universe and the cosmos, and therefore of the creational process. The question is, are we conscious of it? And the conscious tasking, therefore, for the moon function is to become conscious, to become aware of the lunar cycles and determine where you want to break, for example, identification with moods, identification with automated habits, identification with inherited patterns. This is the developmental tasking when you do the work on the moon element of life. In the planetary sense, the tasking is to attune to the planet, to become participant in the planetary cycle and add value, add significance, add meaning by becoming harmonious to her nature and facilitating the entry of higher energy, as you just offered there, David. And so what then could be the tasking that we developmentally embrace for sun level, sun process? Well, it is to become sun-like in our nature, to become radiant, to become a source of uplift and inspiration. And so to conclude this, here is some of us like homework, correct? Some of us like to go home with something to do. Well, how about if you wrote for yourself your own self-directed brief or self-directed prayer that will offer you, will encourage you, will fortify you to order your life in the way and shape and form of this threefold system, such that you commit it to memory. And to give you a little help with your homework, here is what I wrote for myself earlier this week, and we'll call it a day. I order my life to the threefold creational system of sun, planet, and moon. The moon is my past. The planet is my present. The sun is my future. I honor my past, the floor under my feet, and the standards I will not go below by releasing what I no longer need. I cherish the present with its bounty of opportunities, the theater of learning and development, where I discover and fashion myself in the image of my intent and purpose. I am inspired and guided by my yearning to join my higher calling, represented by the sun and all that's above her, where I'm joined to source, graced by spontaneous healing and transformative capacities and the uplift of all that is high. Therefore, shall I order my daily processes and endeavors so that each goes to the level it belongs, where I receive the benefit and fortification of all three. So let it be. You may write your own prayer, you may write your own self-chosen brief, and I nearly brought us home on time.
Yeah. Well, to echo what you said there, Aviv, so let it be.
Thank you, David, for partnering
Absolutely.
on this journey. Thank you, Lisa, and the Portals team, and the IHA crew. We are formally concluding our journey today, but this process is not ending because we are each a living expression of this threefold, and our intent was to inspire and offer access to these three in each of our lives. May we each proceed and offer that inspiration to the people around us, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon in other Portals events. Please share insights, share reflections, share your thoughts. We are looking to continue to evolve our journey here, and your contribution is important. Thank you very much. And Rob, please take us out with some music.
Thank you, Aviv.
Along with our website at portalsofperception.org, Portals is also available on YouTube and on all podcast platforms, as well as social media. You can become an active member and join the conversation in community events. And you can help us get the word out by liking this content and by sharing it with your friends.